means that we need to understand what is the definition of tonality. All right, tonality is the meaning your voice creates beyond your words, right? So how you say something creates a lot of meaning, right? And that's what the definition of tonality is. It's not necessarily the words, it's how we say the words, right? Let me give you an example. I'll use the words thank you. Okay. So I'll just say, thank you, right? That's exciting, right? I'll say, thank you, which is kind of questioning. Or I'll say, thank you, which is kind of neutral, right? All of those different ways that I said that give different meaning to the words that I actually said. All right. That's what tonality is. Now, in high ticket sales, prospects respond more to your emotional state, your certainty, your pace, so how fast you're speaking or slow you're speaking, your confidence and control than they do to the actual words, right? Remember when I said that sales is a transfer of belief? This is really what I'm talking about here, right? Belief is your emotional state. Belief is your certainty. Belief is the pace and presence in the way that you're speaking. Belief is confidence and control, right? It's not necessarily the words, it's the transfer of belief, which is all of these sub items that we are talking about here. Tonality and learning tonality is ultimately what is going to transfer belief, right? Because your tonality tells them whether you're a leader, whether this decision to move forward is safe, whether they should trust your guidance or not, and whether you believe in what you are actually recommending. If you believe in what you are actually selling. All right. And ultimately, this is going to shape what they think about the offer more than the actual offer itself, right? It's not them getting to see the offer and, oh, it has this widget and that widget. No, they want to see how you communicate the offer because that's going to create their perception of reality, the tonality in which you communicate that offer more than the actual X's and O's of the offer. All right. More reasons why this is important. Weak tonality is going to create objections. Strong tonality is going to prevent objections. A nervous tone is going to equal perceived risk, right? If you speak nervously, they're going to be like, oh man, should I be nervous? Is this a risk? Right? Calm certainty tonality equals perceived safety. Hey, this is a safe space. This is a space where I can put my guard down. This is a community I want to be a part of, right? That's all going to be encapsulated in your tonality. Now, the goal is not to match their tonality, it's to set the tone, right? A lot of times you hear like, hey, you should match and mirror your prospect. I actually don't believe that. You should be the leader. You should be the tone setter, not the person who is following their lead. You should be the one who is the leader. All right. So from here on out, we're going to talk about different styles of tonality. All right. So the first one here is going to be authority and certainty tonality. All right. So when should we be using this? Setting expectations, right? So in the beginning of a call, when we dive more into the script, this will make even more sense to you guys, but I'll try to give as much context as I can for where you're at in the course. But in the beginning of the call, you want to set the expectations of the call, right? You want to use an authority and certainty tonality there. Excuse me, an authority and certainty tonality there. So here's what that can sound like, right? Hey, you ready to dive in? They say yes. You say, all right, look, this call is going to be really easy. So in the first 15 to 20 minutes, I'm just going to ask you some questions. Want to make sure 100% you're a good fit for the program. If you are, what I'll do is I'll share my screen. I'll walk you through the program. If you feel good about it, if I feel good about it, then we'll chat about next steps. Does that sound fair? Right? So that was authority and certainty. I was certain in laying out the expectations for that call. There was no questioning in my tonality there. Now, authority, I don't want you to mistake this. Authority doesn't mean, hey, this is what we're going to fucking do, man. That's not authority. Authority just means speaking with confidence. All right. So stating the process, right? Explaining the offer. When you explain the offer, you want to speak with confidence. When you're recommending next steps, so when you close the deal, once again, all this will make a lot more sense when we get into the script. But when you close the deal, you want to lay out the next steps, right? So you want to say, hey, let's freaking go. You want to have some excitement when they say, hey, I'm ready to move forward. I like to do a little air high five. And then from there, I say, all right, so here's what you can expect next. So we're going to take care of the payment. We're going to get the contract signed. Once the contract's signed, I'll walk you through the beginnings of your onboarding. Does that sound like a plan? Right? I communicated all that with certainty. We're doing this, then we're doing this, then we're doing this. You in? And then move forward, right? So that's an example there of using authority, right? Handling logistics. So the best example I can think of is when you're forming a payment plan. So if I pitch and I say, hey, it's $5,000 on a payment plan. If you pay in full, it's $4,000. What's best for you, payment plan or pay in full? If they tell me payment plan, I have a way logistically that I like to take them through that. So what I say is, amazing. Hey, no worries. You know, students do this all the time. So typically what we do is we'll take a down payment first and then we'll figure out the rest. Now, what most students do with that down payment is it's anywhere from $500 to $1,500 down. What's best for you in that range, right? I communicated all of that with certainty. Okay, that's an example. Leading the call. Yeah, so when you're going from question to question in the discovery, right, you are leading the call. You want to sound certain in your transitions, right? So once again, when you see the script, it will make a lot more sense. But when you ask them what their why is, and then you transition to the goal and the challenge and the tried and the need, right? All of these transitions, you're not second guessing yourself. You're certain what the next question is. All right, so what does this do? What does this tonality do? It communicates leadership, safety. It communicates that you've done this before, and it communicates that this is normal, right? This is normal and handled, right? The common mistake here is sounding unsure when you should be decisive. All right, so authority and certainty tone. What is authority? It's not, hey, motherfucker, we're doing this. That's not authority. Authority just means speaking with confidence, speaking with certainty. You are the boss. You are calling the shots. You know what's next. You are speaking with that level of bravado, right? There's no uncertainty in your voice. All right, so that's authority and certainty tonality. Okay. The next one is calm and grounded tonality, right? So when to use this in high emotional situations and anxiety situations and overwhelm and fear of making a mistake, a lot of this will come up in objection handling, right? So you'll see when we cover objection handling in that module, we have a very calm and grounded tonality when we get an objection, right? You can see I'm already slowing down. As I'm explaining it, I'm slowing down my pacing, right? This is pacing as a part of tonality, right? How fast you speak, how loud you speak, and how slow and calm you speak, right? So I'm already speaking calmer. I'm already speaking more grounded, right? You probably feel it in the video, right? I'm calming down the video here. Now, what does this communicate? It communicates emotional safety, stability, regulation. You know, you're going to be okay here, right? So the common mistake here is matching their anxiety, right? So how would you show that you're matching their anxiety? This is not what we want to do. It would be picking up the pace. It would be, you know, talking with a little bit of a shaky voice, right? It would be communicating like this, exactly what I'm doing, right? Just there. Okay, so let me give you an example of common grounded, right? So let's say I get the time objection, right? Let's say they say, Chad, you know what? I'm just not sure if I have the time for this. I say, hey, no worries at all. I get it. I know we live busy lives. And maybe you're right. Maybe now isn't the best time. But just so we're 100% sure, are you cool if I ask you some questions? Right? I was very calm. I was very grounded there, right? I wasn't like, hey, no worries. Yeah, no, I get we're really busy. Right? That would be more of like a shaky anxiety. I'm matching their energy. All right. So that's calm and grounded tonality. Okay, the next one here is empathetic and understanding, right? So body positioning really matters here too, right? When I think empathy and understanding, I think I'm leaning in, right? I want to show that I care. I want to show that I'm invested. I want to show, you know, I'm being empathetic and understanding. All right, so when to use this? In the discovery section, if they communicate some sort of pain, maybe they communicate past failures, personal stories, you know, maybe they have some fear, some anxiety around making this decision. Okay. What does this communicate when you hold an empathetic and understanding tone? It communicates that you see them, you understand them, and you're not judging them either. Now, the common mistake here is staying empathetic and understanding for too long, right? If you stay empathetic and understanding for too long, you are going to lose leadership, right? You're going to be almost viewed as like a pushover. So when I use empathy and understanding, I'm very quick with it. And then I get back into more of my natural state for me, which is leadership and certainty, right? So let me give you an example here. Let me think. So let's say they've had a lot of past failures. They've tried, let's say it's weight loss, right? They have 100 pounds to lose and they've tried multiple times and just failed. And they're really discouraged, right? I would say, man, I really feel for you. I can honestly really tell that you're taking this decision really seriously, and I can tell that you really want to lose this weight, man. And I feel for you here. I really want to help you. And then boom, right from there, I would transition into the next thing that I want to say. So empathetic and understanding, right, is communicating, obviously, that you're being empathetic and understanding, but it's kind of leaning in and talking in that more calm and understanding tonality, right? All right, so that's empathetic and understanding. So the next one here is challenger and pattern interrupt. Okay, so pattern interrupt. It's when I go from, maybe I'm talking calm to boom, I change, right? That's a pattern interrupt. It's something, if you ever watch a piece of content, right, you're scrolling, and then somebody's like, boom, right? Somebody like just like starts speaking loud, right? That's a pattern interrupt. It changes the monotony, right? Monotony. Oh, right. Somebody like changes tonality there, right? So when can we use the challenging tone, the pattern interrupt tone, right? They're giving excuses, circular thinking, comfort-based objections, self-sabotage language, right? And we can hit them with the pattern interrupt to stop the way they're thinking and get them to change their emotional state, right? A lot of times people aren't willing to make transformations because they are stuck in a shitty emotional state. And when you hit them with that pattern interrupt, it can shake them out of that emotional state for a momentary second to make the right decision. All right, what does this communicate? It communicates truth, standards, leadership through honesty. I'm not here to agree with your limits. I'm here to challenge you to be better. All right, so a couple of common mistakes here, and then I'll give you an example. Using this too early or too harshly, right? So when I say too early, like if they just pop on the call and it's like within the first 5 to 10 minutes, I probably don't want to throw a massive pattern interrupt their way because there's no trust built there yet, right? But if it's later in the call, you guys are objection handling, right? You've gotten to that point in the call, it's more justified. Too harshly just means like, don't be an asshole, right? Don't be like, hey, motherfucker, I think you're being a big pussy, right? Like that's, yes, that's a pattern interrupt because it came out of left field, but it's probably not going to be one that is actually viewed very well. Okay, so if you do need to challenge somebody early in the call, I would actually use more of a questioning tonality, right? So if somebody was giving me a lot of excuses in the beginning of the call, I would probably lean into empathy and questioning. So it would sound like this. Hey man, like I totally hear you on that, and I feel really bad that you're going through that. But are you cool if I challenge you here? Right? So see how I had the empathy tonality, and then I switched to question tonality, asking permission to challenge them. Right? So if it was early in the call, that's the position I would take because I'm still challenging them, right? But I'm not coming across as like this is too harsh or too soon. Okay. So pattern interrupt. Let's say here it is. Okay. So let's say they're going through, I feel like an actor, right? I look down, I get into my state, and then I look up. That's kind of funny. But let's say that we're going through objection handling, and let's just say they're giving me the runaround on, these excuses, right? And let's say we've handled this objection multiple times, gotten them, tied it down, gotten them to agree that they're willing to move past this fear and imposter syndrome. Well, let's just say that they are continuing to say like, oh man, I'm just so fearful. Oh my God, I'm unsure. I'm unsure. I would honestly cut them off. And here I say, I'd be like, whoa, honestly, Chad, dude, look, right? Like that alone was me doing the pattern interrupt. I cut them off. Dude, Chad, look, right? I was a little bit louder with my tonality. I cut them off. Boom, that's a pattern interrupt, right? Now I take the leadership stance and I can challenge them, right? And when I challenge them after I've done the pattern interrupt, I'm not going to continue to talk in this voice, right? Like I'm talking down to them. I'd be like, whoa, Chad, look. And then I would calm my tonality down and explain in more of like that certainty voice, opposed to like continuing to raise my voice. You only raise their voice to grab the attention, and then you say the thing that you need to say. All right, so that's challenger and pattern interrupt. All right, let's move on. The next one here, urgency, momentum, tonality, right? This to me is a combination of your leadership and certainty, but you're picking up the pace a little bit, right? So you're picking up the pace a little bit, but you're speaking with authority and tonality, right? So it's that sentence didn't really make sense, but you could hear the tonality, right? I'm speaking faster, but I'm speaking with certainty. That's what urgency is. It's certainty with the pace of being faster. All right. So when to do this? At decision points, indecision loops, let me think about it, energy, time sensitive situations, what it communicates, movement, importance, that waiting has a cost, right? The common mistake here is sounding desperate instead of grounded. I literally did that whole entire slide in the tonality, right? That was the example. I did it with urgency, but certainty. I'm going to do it again. All right, urgency, momentum, tonality. When to use this? Decision points, indecision points. Let me think about it. Energy, time sensitive situations. What does this communicate? Communicates movement, importance, that waiting has a cost. And the common mistake here is sounding desperate instead of sounding grounded, right? I moved with urgency, but certainty. Okay. So that's what this is. And you once again want to use this when you are communicating in decision points, indecision points. Let me think about it, energy, right? They're kind of ruminating, right? And time sensitive situations. This could also be considered a pattern interrupt, right? If they're just ruminating on like, oh man, I don't know, like I just feel like I need more time, blah, 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 then I'd be like, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you, right? You've already waited 12 months. What would happen 12 months from now if you continued, right? If you continued down this path, right? I'm moving with urgency, but I'm also speaking with certainty. Okay, next one here, neutral and information tone. All right, so when to use this? When you're giving simple explanations, you're clarifying logistics, you're answering straightforward questions. What does it communicate? It communicates transparency, calm professionalism. It communicates that you guys are just like, you're there to help them, more or less. The common mistake here is living here the whole call and losing emotional leadership. Okay. So neutral and information tone. As you've seen, I've changed my tonality in this slide. Is just like you're talking to a buddy, right? So I'm not speaking high, I'm not speaking low, I'm just speaking in my neutral, normal tonality, right? The mistake that closers make is they speak in this tonality the whole entire call, and then the call starts to feel really boring, right? There's no emotion in the call, right? You almost want to take your prospects on this emotional roller coaster. When you get really good at tonality, you will understand when or how to take them on this roller coaster, right? It will come more naturally to you when to use certain tonalities here, right? But neutral and information tone is once again simple explanations on things. You're clarifying logistics. To me, that means like talking about the contract and answering straightforward questions. If they ask you like a straightforward question, like, hey, how much time does this program take? Right? Or, hey, what information is in the course? I'm going to speak in more of this tonality here. All right. And the example to that one was literally the whole slide. All right, let's keep moving on. So, and boom, just like that, I changed to urgency tonality, right? Boom, let's keep moving on, right? That was urgency tonality. All right, common tonality mistakes here, okay? Sounding unsure when you're recommending, right? So sounding unsure when you're recommending things. Over explaining instead of leading. This is one of the big ones. People that over explain, they never sell deals, right? You do not need to over explain. It's coming from insecurity, right? Say what you need to say, keep it short, concise, to the point. Talking fast when you are uncomfortable, right? So when you are trying to handle an objection, you start talking really fast and you're uncomfortable, right? That is also going to be communicated. They're going to be able to feel that. Filling silence instead of letting it work. Silence is a tonality. I believe I have a slide on that. Let's see. Yes, I do. So I won't expand on it now, but silence is a tonality. All right, using soft language, I think maybe you could, right? That language is going to communicate an unsure tonality, right? Just say the words, I think, or maybe, or you could, right? The tonality that is coupled with those words is typically soft language, right? So matching the prospect's anxiety instead of calming it, staying empathetic when leadership is required, right? So staying kind of that like, I feel you, man, or, I feel bad for you, man, when, you need to lead that person, right? You need to get them to, have some ownership around why they're not being successful. Sounding attached to an outcome, flat or monotone delivery, right? We just kind of just talked about that with keeping a neutral tone the whole time, or rushing through the price or decision. Okay, so these are the common mistakes with tonality. All right, so I created this little chart, right? And this could be helpful for you. So on the left-hand side here is the prospect state, and then on the right-hand side here is the tonality that you should have. So if they are anxious, you are calm. If they are defensive, you are empathetic. If they are confused, you are an authority. If they are indecisive, you are calm. If they are overconfident, you are a challenger. If they are emotional, you are grounded. If they are logical, you are neutral, right? So that should be really helpful for you in terms of knowing what to do. All right, last one on tonality. Yes, last one on tonality, and then we'll get into framing in the next video, okay? So like I said, silence is a tonality. All right, so what does silence communicate? Silence communicates confidence, leadership, and emotional regulation. All right, a lot of closers will talk to fill the space. I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios here. So after pitching the payment plan, right, a lot of closers here will start talking to fill the space because they're so fucking nervous, right? So what I'll do is I'll say, hey, amazing. So it's $5,000 on a payment plan, $4,000 pay in full. What's best for you, payment plan or pay in full? I'll ask the question and then I'll just sit there. And if they need to think about their answer, I'm not going to fill the gap because maybe they're literally deciding if they want to pay in full or not, right? And if you fill the gap, oh, but hey, no worries, we could do a payment plan. I got the best payment plans, blah, 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 blah. And like, I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but I've literally seen closers do that because they're so nervous and they take the silence of the prospect as like, holy shit, they're not going to do this, right? But literally they could just be thinking like, can I do a payment plan? Can I not do a payment plan? And they just need like a second or two to process, right? So let that silence happen, right? Because more times than not, what I've seen is if you're quiet in those scenarios, it's going to work in your favor. That they're trying to convince themselves, hey, you know what? I should do this. Let them do it. Let them convince themselves. All right, after you make a recommendation on what to do, right? So if you recommend them, and let's say it's weight loss, right? And let's say that you recommend like, hey, honestly, I think macros are the best. Tracking macros is the best for blah 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 reason, right? After you've made your point, you don't have to say anything else. If you make your point and you keep talking, right, it looks like you're really insecure and unsure of your answer, which then lowers your authority. But if you just say your point and then wait for them to respond, right, it shows that you are the authority. All right, after a prospect shares something emotional, a silent pause before you speak communicates you are listening. So if they share, oh man, I've been trying to lose these 50 pounds for, I don't know why I'm doing a country accent. I've been trying to lose these 50 pounds for 5 years, and, my dog died and my goldfish died, and, all these are the reasons why I can't do it or I haven't done it. You just pause, take it in, 1 second, answer, right? And that pause also helps you get into that empathetic tonality, right? If you just answer right away, right, that's not going to be an empathetic tonality, which you need in that moment, right? It could be, I really feel you on that, right? That pause adds to the empathetic tonality. Okay. The next one, after they give an objection, a subtle pause can allow them to keep talking, potentially reveal more about that objection. So let's say they say, Chad, you know what? I really need to think about it. And I just pause for a couple seconds, right? This doesn't always happen, but they might say, and you know what? The reason I need to think about it is this and that. And now they're divulging more information. And the more information you get, the better you can actually handle that objection, right? And it limits how many questions you have to get to actually find out what the real objection is, right? Sometimes they just give you the answers. But if you don't pause, you'll never create that moment to happen. And when I say pause, don't make it uncomfortable, right? Pause for a second, see if they say what they need to say, and then give your answer. All right. When they are processing, do not cut them off. Kind of already talked about this, right? But especially in objection handling, if you've handled an objection and you said what you needed to say, and they're just sitting there like this, It means they're thinking. And once again, more times than not, they're thinking on how to sell themselves on why they need to do this. So let them freaking do it. Give them that space to do it.